Welcome back to Jordbær Knits. My name is Jordan and this is my knitting channel where I talk about my knitting projects. I will apologize up front if that door is loud. That's where my water heater is and it's loud for me. I'm hoping it's not too noticeable on your end. I'm really hoping to get a microphone soon. My boyfriend has alluded to maybe getting one for me for the holidays, which would be very generous of him. So hopefully that happens and then my sound will be a little better. But anyway, very glad to be sitting back down. My last episode was like a whole thing where I filmed it, I think at the beginning of August, and didn't get around to editing it until last month. And so this video today is going to be basically like what I've been working on sort of during like the fall season. I live in Austin, as I've said in previous videos, and it can sometimes get kind of cool in October. This year I think was like one of the warmest Octobers on record. So I unfortunately haven't been able to wear my knits, well, specifically my sweaters. I have a number of slipovers and vests that I have worn a lot, which has been awesome. But November now, we're finally starting to get the cooler weather. I'm so excited. I can't wait to actually wear my sweaters. I will say up front that what I'm wearing today is not a hand knit. I'm sitting down obviously, but it is actually a sweater dress. I got it a few years ago from, I think Frank and Oak maybe is the brand, I don't know. But I really like it, and I think the chestnut dress by PetiteKnit would be like a close approximation of what it looks like. But yeah, anyway, every time I wear it, I think that I need to make an actual sweater in this brown because it is so beautiful, and I would love to be able to wear this color when I don't want to wear a dress, you know? Okay, anyway, I will go ahead and get started with my finished objects. I have three technically. I don't have one of them because it was a gift, but I have sort of like, I have a different finished object that's the same thing but not the gift. So I can show you that. Maybe that's not as exciting, but I'm just gonna start off with it. So one of my friends, for my birthday back in September, she and her husband had gifted me this little needle felting kit. And I could put a picture this side probably of what it looks like. It was a little gnome and he was so cute. It was so sweet. It's the first time I did any needle felting and it was really cool. And so for her birthday in October, I wanted to also knit a little something for her. And so I decided on a little scarf, like a small neck scarf, and I didn't want to do the Sophie scarf just because, I don't know, I just wasn't feeling it. You know, I wanted to try something different that was like a little more exciting. And so I decided on scarf number 4 by My Favorite Things Knitwear, which I'll show you now. Okay, so this, like I said before, this is not the gift, but this was the first scarf that I knit. And the pattern, I think, originally calls for a cashmere yarn, and I don't have cashmere yarn, but I had a number of different little like 1 or 2 skeins of yarn in my stash and figured I would just draw from there. And last year, like in 2023 for my birthday, along with a Swift from Knit Picks, my parents had gotten me 1 skein of the Swish DK, which is a superwash yarn. And this is the color. And I'm actually blanking. It might be almond, something like that. I can put it in the description because I'm blanking on what it is now, of course. But so I had 1 skein of it, and I'd sort of just been saving it because I didn't really know what to use 1 skein of DK yarn for, and figured maybe I would end up buying more at some point to do like a bigger project. But then when I thought about doing the scarf, I was like, oh, perfect. I'm gonna use this yarn. And I guess I didn't fully read how much yarn was called for. But basically you start on one end and knit sort of up, and you're increasing on one side. I actually don't remember which is the front. Yeah, this is the right side. So it's in a really cool textured pattern made using garter stitch and then some ribbing. And it's pretty similar on both sides, which is nice. And I will say this yarn feels gorgeous because it's a superwash. It's so soft, and it would be really nice to wear as a scarf. But so because I didn't fully look at how much yarn was called for in the pattern, by the time I got to the middle point, like here, I realized, oh, I'm probably not gonna have enough yarn. And so when you are increasing, you're pretty much doing, I think it's like every 4 rows, because you're doing an increase in one of the garter stitch rows and then an increase in one of the rib sort of sections, I believe. And then there's, I actually don't remember what she calls it, but it's not like an I-cord edge, but some sort of braided edge, which looks really nice. But so once I realized I had gotten to the halfway point and was not gonna have enough yarn, I started increasing more rapidly. And so it's kind of hard to see, maybe rolling backwards. Yeah. So you can see there, this is obviously a lot longer than this one. And now I don't think necessarily you would notice like when you're wearing it, but the issue is that it's just not, it's not long enough. Like you can tie it around once and it's like kind of a bandana sort of thing. Or I mean, if you wanted to do this, like see, it looks so nice and cute from the front. You cannot wrap it around twice. And you know, if this is what you were going for, sure, it would be okay. But you're supposed to be able to wrap it around and tie it more so that it's like, you know, what you think of as like a little neck scarf. And so I decided, okay, no, it's not worth doing this. I would not be happy to give this as a gift, even if my friend doesn't know that the pattern isn't correct. And so, I don't know why I was looking for the remainder of the little skein, but anyway, I had a full skein left of the Cascade 220 fingering superwash yarn that I had used for my mixed rib cami test knit over the summer, which is a pattern handmade by Florence. And it's a really beautiful sort of like pale yellow color. It can look very neutral, but when you put it against white, you can tell the difference. And so I thought that would be a really great option, especially since, whoops, sorry about that. I'm kicking my tripod. The pattern, as My Favorite Things Knitwear has written, I believe calls for like 2 skeins of the cashmere yarn, maybe Cardiff cashmere, I don't really remember, but it basically works out to be one of sort of like a standard fingering weight skein where it's, you know, 50 grams for like 200 meters or whatever, that the very standard sort of fingering weight skein. And so that worked out amazingly. I actually did not take any pictures before I gave it to her, so hopefully she can send a picture of it to me so that I can share it with you guys. But I mean, it looks very similar to this. It's just yellow, and the increase and decreases are at the same rate. I believe you can tie it twice around. I did try, and it was a little tight, but I think it's something that, like, if you wash it again and sort of block it and stretch it out, I think you could easily stretch it to get a little bit more length out of. Oh, and I didn't even say what needles or anything I used. So I knit this on 4mm needles because I tend to just go up a needle size. I mean, unless I just happen to meet gauge with the regular one, but at this point I pretty much just always go up a needle size since I know I'm a tight knitter. But for the scarf I made with the yellow, since I had already used it for a pattern, the mixed rib cami, and I was familiar with how it knitted up, I actually just stuck to the needle size called for in the pattern, which is 3.5mm needles. The mixed rib cami, for reference, uses 3mm for the main body. And then, yeah, like I said, this pattern called for 3.5 and I just used 3.5 and I think it worked out well. Maybe going up to 4mm might have given me like a little bit more length, but I honestly am not sure. I don't think it would have made that big of a difference. But yeah, if you're looking for a neck scarf that is not the Sophie scarf, I do recommend this one. It was a pretty easy pattern repeat to remember since it's just garter and ribbing, and yeah, it creates a beautiful pattern. It's very, very squishy and soft, helped I'm sure by this yarn, but yeah, there's this one. Okay, my next one is an update from pattern and project that I talked about in my last episode and maybe previous ones as well. But that is the Traveler's Cardigan by Ozetta. Let me get it oriented. Okay, here it is. It's really hard to see because it's a dark green. But yeah, I will be honest that I'm very disappointed in myself, I would say, in relation to this project. So you'll notice I have the stitch markers left where the buttons would go because I haven't sewn any buttons on yet because I'm probably gonna end up frogging it. It's very sad. But basically, I did not do a gauge swatch before I started knitting this, which I know that I should have. So part of this is 100% my own fault. No, all of it is my own fault. But when I started it, like when I was doing the back and then the front and the sleeves, and I mean, just looking at it now, I mean, I feel like it looks really nice. I should say this yarn is Knit Picks Wool of the Andes worsted in the color Aurora Heather. So it's a worsted weight yarn. The pattern originally calls for, I believe it's an Aran weight. I'm blanking on the brand name, but it's like an unspun Icelandic wool. And it's 6mm needles, which I did use. And I knit a size medium, which normally I think I would have been a small, but knowing that my yarn was gonna be thinner than what the pattern called for and that I'm a tight knitter, I was like, I'm gonna do the medium. Like I mentioned in my last episodes, you can't even see, especially because my dress is dark. Here, I'll stand up to show. There we go. So I did split the hem, which is not originally called for in the pattern. I followed a recommendation on Ravelry, which I can link to. If you can see, there's a little bit of ribbing that starts at the split before going into the ribbing for the hem. The other major thing I did, which I don't know if you'd be able to tell at this point. Oh, well, I guess you can. So I did not knit the button band at the same time as the body, which is a big part of this pattern. I started to, and it felt not fun, and I didn't want to try to do it. So I figured out, you know, like where the body sort of started and where the button band would have started. I made a little note for myself and then just knit the body. I knit the ribbing with the split hem, and then I picked up the button band on both sides of the cardigan. And in the pattern, when you're knitting it simultaneously, you're doing a ribbed button band, but I decided to do a double knit one just because I really like the look of it. And I did one for my step-by-step cardigan by Handmade by Florence, and it worked out really well. She has a really nice tutorial video showing you how to do that, which makes it really easy. And I believe PetiteKnit also has a video. I think someone commented on my last video suggesting that for me, so next time I do a cardigan, I'm gonna check that out too, because that'll show you how to avoid having to cut all your ends to do the buttonholes, which like isn't that big a deal, but it would be nice to avoid that a little bit because that's the only kind of annoying part. And then after I did the button band, or wait, did I? Hold on, I'm like forgetting what I did. Oh no, okay. So I did the button bands on both sides, and then I picked up the neckline and I did the ribbing around the neck. So yeah, it basically, my gauge is still off. This I think was supposed to have a 16 stitch gauge. If that's wrong, I will make a note of it on screen or in the description somewhere. And I believe mine was maybe like 18 stitches, and it's gonna be difficult to see, but I'll put it on just so you can see the fit. But basically it doesn't fit how I want it to. And I kind of had a suspicion that I might be just something was off when I was knitting it, when I split for the hem. Cause I did it where, you know, they lined up, like they were even, and it feels like it just didn't feel right. So now, let me see. I am wearing knit on knit, so if I was wearing a t-shirt, it might be a little better, but so you can see, it's not that it doesn't fit me, it's just that it is not the fit that I wanted, and I would really be stretching, like especially up here, like for the neckline. It just feels like it's too tight. And so imagine if it was all buttoned up like this. See how wide this split is? Like it doesn't feel right. Especially considering that I made a medium. I feel like this is like extra small or something. Okay, so I just looked up the finished bust measurement for the cardigan just to double check because I forgot. And for the size medium, it's supposed to be 42 inches. I have a 35-inch bust, so that would have given me a nice sort of like 7 inches, right? Like a little bit oversized, but not too crazy, but comfortable where I could still easily wear a shirt underneath for layering. And this finished cardigan has a 36-inch bust. So, I mean, that's basically the size extra small written in the pattern, because even a small is supposed to have 39 inches. And And so I guess, I mean, this is a great example of why doing a gauge swatch is so incredibly important. Because even if you think you're making the adjustments necessary to sort of offset different yarn, it could not be enough. And and then you go through the whole thing of knitting it and it doesn't fit how you want. And so that's a very big bummer for me. You'll hear about some of the other things that I'm working on. And so once I finish those in my future plans, I will be frogging this. I'm trying to decide what I want to do with this yarn, because I had a number, I want to say maybe 5 or 6 skeins of this yarn left over from when I knit my boyfriend the Ingrid Sweater Man last year. And that's not quite enough for a full sweater for me, at least. And so I had ordered, I think, 4 more balls from Knit Picks, and the color match is pretty good. Like, I honestly don't even remember where I used a new ball. I mean, like, it's basically the same, which is great. But so I believe I have either 9 or 10 full skeins, so it's a good amount. It's not a ton for like an oversized sweater. And so I'm just trying to decide now, like, do I want to try for another cardigan that like actually is a worsted weight gauge, or even like a DK weight, because I've used this yarn for a DK weight sweater. Do I want to do a color work project? I have kind of been interested in maybe like the Norma sweater by My Favorite Things Knitwear, or I think the Inga sweater by Knit. And in that case, I wouldn't mind buying, you know, a few skeins of other Wool of the Andes for, you know, like the accent colors. I also kind of think it'd be cool to do another textured knit, but not the Ingrid sweater, but so like my boyfriend and I could kind of be matching, but not exactly. I think that would be cute. So I don't know. I don't know. But yeah, like I said, I'm gonna wait until after I finish my current works and my future gift knit plans, and then I'll decide what to do with this. So this will probably end up being like a 2025 frog / new project. But yeah, so kind of sad, but you live and you learn. My next finished object is one that I have already been wearing a lot and I love it so much, and and it is the Olga sweater by PetiteKnit. If you're familiar with this pattern and her Instagram photos, you will see that I went for a similar color palette that she did in her original photos. I used Wool of the Andes worsted again. This navy blue is Peacoat blue, I believe. It's a very dark, deep navy. It's an absolutely gorgeous shade of navy. Like, this is what I want in a navy. And then the tweed, technically it's Wool of the Andes tweed, but it is the color Dawn Heather, I believe, and it's sort of like a grayish, like it's beige, but it definitely leans a little gray. I'm not mad about it, but I think the PetiteKnit version, because I believe she was using Peer Gynt, and the tweed that she used was just slightly warmer and brighter, I would say. And the similar version that Knit Picks has, they were sold out in that color. But I still like this one, and I'm very happy to have it, especially because I've worn it with white jeans and it's a nice accent. Like, it doesn't just look like an off-white, like you can tell it's a different color, which I like. But anyway, this was a really fun project. This was one of my first like actually fully striped projects. Like I talked about in my last episode, I had started knitting the Amelie tee by PetiteKnit, which also was stripes, and that has different widths of stripes that you are alternating between. This one, it's the same ratio throughout the whole sweater, obviously. One of the things that I really liked about this pattern was the one color in the neckline, which she has written to be the darker color of your two. Obviously you could change that if you wanted, but I really liked how the ribbing at the arms and at the bottom of the sweater sort of just blended in with the stripes. I liked the sort of the difference between the very bold neckline, but then it just, the rest of the sweater felt very, I don't know, harmonious, or just, I don't know what I'm trying to say, but I really liked the look of it and how the ribbing at the bottom wasn't emphasized. I knit this on 4.5 millimeter needles. At this point, I've used Wool of the Andes worsted for a number of projects, and especially projects where PetiteKnit uses pure Gint on 4 millimeter needles. And I know that I can achieve correct gauge with 4.5 millimeter needles. So in this case, I did not do a gauge swatch, but I felt very confident in my ability to get the correct measurements still, just since I had used it so much before. I knit the size medium because I did want a little bit of an oversized fit. I believe there is some positive ease written into the pattern already, but it's not like one of the super oversized ones that she does sometimes. I don't remember the final, oh my gosh. I'm so sorry again, wow. I don't remember the final measurement of the sweater, but I do know that I did hit 20 stitches for my gauge, and it did match up with the medium that is written. I did crop it. You can probably tell when I hold it up like this. I wanted sort of like a boxy fit, not something too wide and oversized, but just a little big, a little cropped. I've mentioned before, but I have sort of like a hard time with sweaters that are sort of like hip length unless they have a split hem. And since this one didn't, I wanted it to be a little cropped, and I'm very happy with that decision. I did visit Maine a few weeks ago, which was awesome. It's so beautiful up there, and it was colder than it was in Texas, and so I was able to wear this sweater there, which was awesome. And so I can put some pictures up if I haven't already to show you what it looked like, how I styled it and whatnot. I didn't talk about the construction of the traveler's cardigan except for the button band, so I apologize about that. But I will say for this one, it's a top down drop shoulder sweater. You can probably see that over here. In the back, I think it looks really nice how the stripes go, where you've got sort of the one dark line or dark stripe following the shoulder. And oh my goodness, you do German short rows to shape it in the back. I'm like, I already forgot. Wow. Yeah, you do German short rows to shape, and then you pick up each shoulder. You're doing the increases around the neck. I would say fairly standard drop shoulder construction. Yeah, honestly, I don't know how much else there is to say about this. It's kind of a standard drop shoulder sweater apart from the stripes, but I do think that makes it fun and different, and I've really enjoyed on Instagram and Ravelry seeing everyone's color combos. Obviously a lot of people have gone for this sort of like navy and cream-ish, especially with like one of the stripes being tweed, but there have been some really cool other combos, and it kind of makes me want to do another one, but I'm like, do I really need 2 striped sweaters? I don't know, but if you're looking for a striped sweater, I know there's a lot of great patterns out there. This was also a really good one, especially if you're a beginner. It was very easy to follow. Oh, the other thing I will say with stripes, I did carry my floats. no, I carried the yarn up. So I was saying with my Amelie tee that I was really trying to pay attention to the tension as I was carrying the yarn up, especially because I'm using linen and cotton yarn for that project, and it was just easier to see sort of where I was doing that. So this is the side where I was carrying the yarn, like changing stripes. And I don't know if you can tell that easily. If you're really looking for it, you can see it's right there, but it was a lot easier using the wool yarn. That's what it looks like on the inside. Yeah, I thought it was very easy to do that. I don't remember off the top of my head if PetiteKnit has any videos about how to do that, but there's plenty of videos on YouTube that you can look up if you have never knit stripes and are looking for how to knit jogless stripes. But yeah, otherwise, it's backwards. Otherwise, that's it for my Olga sweater. And now I will move on to my works in progress, which, oh, technically I have two. I did leave one of them at work, which is very unfortunate. The project that I left in my office is another gift knit for my friend, another friend who had a birthday at the end of October. And she, for my birthday, so kindly gifted me a set of Lilac interchangeable needles, like so sweet of her. And so I have been using those now in some of my projects, which has been awesome. And so last year I knit her a melange sweater, which I talked about in some previous episodes. And this year I got her something small from Maine on my trip there, and then I wanted to still knit her something. And so I'm doing the Wiggly scarf pattern by Helena Weiser or Weiser. But I saw it on Instagram and just thought it was so cute. I love sort of like the skinny scarf look. I think that is still so cute. And my friend recently moved to Florida out of Chicago, and so knitting the melange sweater, I'm like, oh great, yes, she can wear it when she's in the cold in Chicago. But now being back in Florida, I'm like, oh man, I feel more limited in what I could knit her. And I was like, okay, scarf, especially skinny scarf, that should be okay. Nothing too crazy, not too warm or anything. So like I mentioned before, I have a number of sort of like one-off skeins in my stash and figured I could do something with that. And I have this beautiful, beautiful shade of light purple, and oh, I should specify, it's Sandnes Garn Sunday, and the color is 4631, I believe, which is like, I think it's just lilac. But I've had that in my stash for a while, and I coincidentally have a matching Mohair by Sandnes Garn, because I had used it in my Stockholm slipover for myself, even when I was not using Sandnes Garn, like for the main yarn. But anyway, it just so happens that these lilacs are the perfect match. They're both 4631, so they look beautiful together. And I believe the pattern calls for like a sport weight yarn. And so holding the fingering weight and mohair together, I guess I'm sort of getting like a DK, but I'm basically just gonna knit until I finish each ball of yarn. That should give me a pretty good length of scarf. I wish I had brought it home with me over the weekend. I have another big project that I want to make some good progress on, and so I thought, oh, if I leave the scarf at my office, I can just work on the other project over the weekend. So I did that, but now I can't show it to you, but I'll get some pictures of it when I go into work on Monday, and then hopefully I can put them in before I publish this video, just so that you can see. But basically the scarf is just knit using garter stitch, and there's like a nice, I guess, slip stitch edge on either side, and the little wiggle shape is made using just increases with yarn overs, and then decreases on the other side. And so it's so there's a 23 row repeat. I'm sort of chuckling to myself because I spoke more about the increases and decreases, and then I realized, oh, I hope I didn't give away the pattern. So that part will be cut out for you because I don't want to give it away because it is a paid for pattern. But basically I at least sort of chunk it out into different blocks where I'm like, okay, I'm doing sort of only the garter stitch for this amount of rows, and then I'm doing one of the increase decrease, a few more garter, and then more of the increase decrease rows to get more of the curve. And thinking about it like that helps keep me on track. I also use two different colored stitch markers that can be removed. So when I'm starting a new sort of repeat, I put one specific color, green, to mark as sort of like the odd row, or like the right side, while I'm doing all of those rows. And then the back side, or the wrong side, has a red stitch marker. And then when I finished the repeat, I just switch them around so that I can begin it again. I'm probably making this sound more complicated than it is. It really is like a pretty easy pattern to get to. It's a pretty easy pattern once you get a hold of the repeat and find a rhythm that works for you. So if you're interested in doing a little skinny scarf that's a little bit different, I definitely recommend checking that one out. I believe the designer also has like a little free pattern that's just like posted on her Instagram for another skinny scarf that is striped, I think. And at first I was looking at doing that, but I wasn't sure what colors I would want to do, so that's why I just went for the little wiggly scarf. And I also kind of want to make one for myself now. So yep, that's one of my works in progress. The next one is my big one. So my next work in project is the biggest one that I have been working on recently. It's kind of in an awkward position that I've left it, but I will try to show it anyway. Here it is. This is the Mountains and Seas sweater. It is a test knit for Sarah's Hand Makes. She is also here on YouTube. I found her from her awesome little series that she does about like knit your aesthetic, where she takes different sort of like trendy aesthetics in fashion and finds different knitting patterns that you could do to fit within that. So if you haven't seen that, definitely recommend checking that out along with her podcasts because they're very fun. And I haven't seen anyone else really do that idea, so I think it's really cool. But she came out with her first pattern recently, obviously because it's in testing, and you can see I've been doing the neckline. So you see it's a 2x2 rib. It's a V-neck. It's very difficult to tell that right now because I really don't have that much of the body knitted yet. So it's curling up a lot. It is a raglan design. And so I just recently joined Under the Arms. I just have them on some spare yarn. I actually was working on this a lot at work when I had a Zoom training, and I had forgotten to pack extra needles or like stitch holders with me, and so I just used some of the Sandnes Garn Sunday from the Wiggly sweater, or the scarf, sorry. But so you can see that lilac color. Anyway, we're talking about this one now. So I had seen people knit the Harlow sweater v-neck by Kadri, and then I'm forgetting which sweater it is by My Favorite Things Knitwear, but she also has a v-neck that has 2x2 ribbing, and I really liked both of those and just hadn't got around to making either of them, kind of because I couldn't decide which one I liked more than the other. And so then when I saw that Sarah put out the test knit for this, I was like, oh my gosh, this would be perfect. Like, I would be able to knit a v-neck sweater, which I have not done yet. I have a v-neck vest, but not sweater. I love the 2x2 ribbing. I love that she is a new up-and-coming designer with a YouTube channel. I think it's awesome to support smaller designers. And I liked the raglan design of it as well. I think I tend to prefer drop shoulder construction for crew neck, but I don't know, I feel like for a v-neck, I feel like the raglan just would fit really nicely, and so I was excited to try that as well. Also, I will say I really like this, like the size of the raglan, is that what you call it? It's a 3-stitch raglan, and I think that's like the perfect size. I don't like when it's super small, and I also don't like when it's super thick, so I think this looks great. So the test knit started back in like the middle of October, and so you might be saying, oh my gosh, you only have that much done, it's been almost a month. And I will say I actually had knit basically this and more previously, and I was having a lot of trouble with the gauge. I did not want to do a fuzzy sweater. So like I did not want to use mohair. I just wanted it to be sort of plain wool. And this has a 20-stitch gauge. And in the pattern, she has written that this would be DK weight yarn, or you could do, you know, like a fingering and mohair held together, and it would be on 4mm needles. And so when I was looking for yarn, well, first of all, I had a gift card to a local yarn store, and so I wanted to utilize that gift card when I was buying yarn for this. But so I was looking at DK and worsted and going back and forth, and I finally decided on this Blue Sky Fibers Woolstok. So this is a huge skein of it. This yarn comes in 150-gram skeins, which is what this is, as well as 50-gram skeins. And I actually am knitting the size extra small. This is written to have a lot of positive ease. I don't remember the exact number of inches that she has it written for, but basically even the extra small, I think it's supposed to have, I want to say 41 or 42 inches as its final bust measurement. So I should still have at least some positive ease once I finish this, if it's the correct gauge. But yes, so this is to say, when I was looking for yarn, I needed about 945 yards for the extra small size. And so I ended up going with this because it was relatively affordable, and I liked that it came in these really big skeins. So I bought 2 of these 150 gram skeins. So there are 370 yards in this. So I bought 2 of them. So I don't feel like doing the math, but anyway, I bought 2 of these and then 1 50-gram, which I don't know if I have the label for that yet or still, but that I think was maybe like 120 yards or 150 yards, something like that. And it's called worsted. It's 100%, what is it? Highland wool. I'm using the color 1303 Highland Fleece. So I don't know if it's undyed, but it's a pretty neutral color. I feel like it's relatively lightly worsted. It's like almost more of a heavier DK, which shouldn't be an issue because, I mean, the pattern even is written as a DK weight pattern. And so I knit a gauge swatch kind of actually after I had started actually knitting the sweater, which again is not a good idea, but I figured I'm probably gonna have to size up to 4.5 millimeter needles. I did my gauge swatch and I even held it with a mohair and went up to 5 millimeter needles too, to just sort of see like the differences between them. And when I washed it, I was able to get 20 stitches with the 4.5 millimeter needles. And when I was knitting the body, here, I'll hold it up again. Okay, well, I'll start sort of with the construction. You cast on however many number of stitches, and then as you're doing the raglan increases, you are knitting flat. Sorry, I don't want my needle to come out here. And you're basically knitting back and forth flat the whole time that you're doing the V. And that is how you are shaping it. So there's no short rows or anything. You are just knitting flat to do the increases while you're doing the raglan as well. And I think that works great. It's a lot of knitting flat, but that's okay. And then you join under the arms, put the sleeves on hold, fairly standard. And then normally you would just continue knitting down the body. However, the first time I was doing this, I decided, once I run out of whatever ball of yarn I'm using, I'm gonna do the neckline, which is what I tend to like to do anyway. And in the pattern, she has written not specific numbers for each size in terms of picking up the neckline, but just to pick up 2 out of every 3 stitches. And then she does have written that when she knit the extra small, I think she picked up 57, like on each side of the V, because you pick up a multiple of 4 plus 1, and then you have a center stitch, and then you match for the other side. And that is so you can keep obviously the 2x2 ribbing pattern, and it's hard to see, but there's a nice center stitch decrease, and I've started increasing back again because it's a double folded collar. But anyway, the first time I did that, I think I did it 3 or 4 times because I just could not get it where it looked right. Originally, you are using the same size needle to pick up the ribbing, which a lot of times you tend to go down a needle size, and so I did keep it the same size, so in my case 4.5. And when I was knitting up the ribbing, I felt like it just looked messy just because it is a little bit of a bigger needle. So like now, for instance, I'm using 4 millimeter needles, so I did go down, and I think it looks pretty nice. Yeah, 2x2 can sometimes be a little tricky to maintain the tension on, like when you're going from the knitting to the purl stitch, but I think I'm pretty happy with what I've done. But anyway, so I did that. The first time when I tried to pick up 2 out of 3, I think I picked up maybe fewer than 57, you know, like on the one side. And then when I switched to the 4mm needles, I think I picked up, maybe I picked up 57. And it didn't look right. So I ripped it all out. And these times I'm saying that I ripped it out, I didn't do the whole thing. I made it, you know, like 4 or 5 rounds, and I was like, it's not looking good. I just want to restart it. And so the third time that I had done it, I think I picked up somewhere in the low 60s. So a little bit more than what she had called for. Maybe it might have just been 61, honestly. But that time I did knit the whole thing. I sewed it down, and this one is not, it's not doing it as much here. Now, granted, I have not sewn it down, obviously, but my previous iteration, it was really puckering along this edge and along that edge. And I was hoping that it would sort of relax with blocking, especially because other people had asked about that in our group chat. The people who have finished theirs have blocked out, and it looks really nice. I mean, even Sarah's 2 samples, I mean, they look great. Like, there's no puckering or anything. And so I was like, I'm just gonna cross my fingers that it works out when I block it. I'm gonna keep going, whatever. So then I started on one of the sleeves, and I believe it's every 6 rows you're doing a decrease. And I will say, I really like how she has the decrease written, because when I've done sleeve decreases in the past, it's usually, you know, you knit 2 together on one side, and then on the other one you either like slip knit, or I've done it where you're knitting 2 together from the back loop. But with this one, she has you do another center decrease like you're doing for the V-neck, and I thought that was really cool. It also looks very clean, and yeah, I just like that technique because I hadn't seen it before. But anyway, I using 4.5mm needles, and we have discussed in the group that the sleeves are relatively close fitting, especially compared to the rest of the body, which is fairly oversized. And so I knew that going in, but when I was knitting it, it just felt so tight. And yeah, it just felt off. You know, sometimes you can just tell where you're like, it doesn't feel right. And now I had not previously ever done a mid-project block before. I had never really felt the need to, but in this case, since it's a test knit, I really want to make sure that I'm getting close to the gauge, I'm getting close to the measurements. I want to be able to give feedback, obviously, and have the finished object closely match the pattern if possible. And so I figured I'm gonna block it. I'm gonna see how much the yarn grows, if it does, hopefully, because I had read online that it did. Like, people on Ravelry have had really great experience with this yarn, and they've talked about how nicely it blooms and everything. And so I was like, all right, let me block it. And so I can put a picture, because I took a picture of what it looked like after it was blocking. And basically, like, the sleeves just were too tight still. Like, I think I was getting 22 stitches instead of 20. The neckline, it still looked sort of puckery, and I just was so sad. Like, I felt like the yarn betrayed me in a way, like, because I felt like I had done what I could, you know, to prepare for it. Like, I bought a worsted yarn when it called for DK. I went up to 4.5mm needles knowing that I'm a tight knitter, and when there have been 20 stitch patterns before, doing that has helped it. Having used wool the Andes so much, I was like, I should have just used that again. But I wanted to like branch out and use a different yarn, and yeah, so I was just feeling really down and really, really sad about that. And so I thought about what I could do, and I remembered that at one of my local yarn stores, Hill Country Weavers, they have sort of like their own house brand of tons of different bases, and in all just sort of undyed colors. And they have one, this is the ball that I'm currently using now. It's super thin. It's a merino. I don't remember what it's called specifically. I can put it in the description though, and it's just in like the undyed color, the only one that they offer. And it is, I think it was 100 grams for like 940 yards, or 930, I think. So it's, a little goes a long way. And like when I was winding it up, I split it into 2 different skeins. So like this is getting towards the end of the first little skein that I made. And so I unraveled the whole thing. I spun it back up, or winded it back up, I should say. And I started over. And I mean, like you can see, I didn't even wash the yarn, so it's still sort of crinkly. But I'm holding it with this now. I'm hoping that that is helping it. It's a little hard to tell because, I mean, when I knit this, or when I did it the first time, like the body seemed okay. So I'm hoping that holding this lace weight with it now will just give it like the little bit of extra thickness that it needs to get that correct gauge. So you'll see for the neckline, man, I feel like it got very dark in here. I'm so sorry if the lighting is very bad now. Okay. But I basically just picked up like every stitch that I could. I did not follow the 2 out of 3 rate at all. I picked up every stitch for the back and on the side for the shoulder. And then I did my best to pick up every stitch I could down sort of like the V in the front. I must have been a little off because sort of like on the second side, I ended up picking up more, and so I had to knit some together, but whatever. So now on each side of the V center, I had 77 stitches. So a lot more than what I had originally done, 20 more than what Sarah did in her extra small version, and at least 16 probably more than what I had previously done when I was knitting this the first time. I'm again using 4.5mm needles, and I feel like already it looks a lot better. Considering that this is going to be double folded and knit down, I'm not really worried about it. Well, I was going to say I'm not really worried about it being too loose, like on the inside part, but I don't know. I know people have put elastic in before, and I've talked about doing that in various projects, which I frogged the one I talked about doing it before, so I have not done this yet. But if absolutely necessary, I will do that. I don't want it to be too tight and puckery. Like, I feel like that's worse. If it's too loose, at least you can put elastic in. But anyway, so that is how that's going. It's definitely not a fault of the pattern. Like, what I've experienced so far has been like on my end of it, right? Like, me being a tight knitter combined with, I guess, this yarn. And then I had also messaged Sarah to tell her about this, and she even said that she's like a pretty loose knitter in comparison. So I feel like those things combined have just made it where, yeah, I don't know. But I am excited for this pattern. After I do the neckline, I'm gonna do the sleeves probably, just because I want to make sure that they are long enough and if for some reason I'm running short on yarn, which I shouldn't be, but if I'm running short at all, I can just crop it a little. But one of the other things I forgot to say too that drew me to this pattern specifically is that it is a split hem as well. So Sarah talks about in some of her videos that she also really likes that design feature of the split hem. And so when she did her own pattern, she of course put that in there, which I was like, yes, amazing. So I'm really looking forward to doing that. The people who have finished theirs already, like they look so good. And I really want this. Like, I don't want to have to give this away to someone because it doesn't fit right, which is why I was like, let me just frog this and redo it. So I'm really hoping that adding this little lace weight fixes the issue and ends up, oh my gosh, and the lace weight yarn keeps rolling off my lap because it's so thin and light. But anyway, I think that's a sign to wrap up talking about this because I've said pretty much all that I need to. So yes, next video, hopefully I will have more of this done, if not finished. The test knit, I think it ends on like December 28th or something like that. So I still have about like 5 to 6 weeks to finish this as of when I'm recording. I think I can do it. But Sarah was very nice in saying like if I did need any more time, just to let her know, obviously, because the holidays are coming up and gift knitting is a thing. And yeah, so anyway, the Mountains and Seas sweater. Okay, very briefly, I will also just mention some acquisitions that I have. I don't typically talk about these just because I try not to buy yarn if I don't need it for a project. But with gift knitting, I have bought a few things. So the first one that I will talk about is this. I accidentally stopped recording. Okay. But this one, this is by a hand dyer who is local to me in Austin, Yarn Matter. I believe she was at Flock Fiber Festival. So if you were there, maybe you saw her. But she does really beautiful dye jobs, all with like totally natural dyes, which is really cool. So like this one, she dyed it with indigo. Oh my gosh, cochineal? I don't know if that's how you pronounce that. And then logwood. And it's sort of like a grayish creamy base with these beautiful little areas of purple, blue, even thought I saw like an orangey. Maybe that was just different on the camera, but definitely more purples and blues. And this was this is a one-of-a-kind skein because it was a trial for like one of her collections. This specific colorway is called Afterglow, and it's a sock yarn, but it's 100% merino, so there's no nylon in it. I am not planning to make socks with it, but I am planning to make a little shawl for my grandmother for Christmas. I have an idea of the pattern. I will put it up here. I totally forget the name of it. I believe it is like an Icelandic name by a designer who is not Icelandic, but I think she's fairly popular on Ravelry. I was not familiar with her previously, but it looks like a cool pattern. I'm sure I've mentioned this in previous episodes, but I sometimes struggle with what to knit for my family who lives in Florida just because it doesn't get cold there, but I want to knit them things. And so this pattern hopefully will be a nice sort of like light shawl that my grandma can wear like inside, or if it does get a little cool, she can wear it, but it's not like super heavy. And I know she really likes the color purple, and so I think this one will be beautiful. And it's not like too in your face either, where hopefully it's still a little neutral where she can wear it with a lot. So very excited for this one. And then my other yarn, this is gonna be for my uncle. I bought this at one of our new local yarn stores in Austin, Knit ATX, and this is just Barocco vintage. So my uncle was the one who very kindly gifted me the gift card to Hill Country Weavers, and jokingly he was like, oh haha, you should knit me socks or something now. I don't want to knit socks, but I did still want to knit him something, and I figured a hat. A hat would be good, especially because he lives in Kentucky, which does get a little cold. And so I initially had been thinking of using the wool of the Andes that I had left over from my Olga sweater, so like the navy and the sort of like tweed beige, and either doing like stripes again or some other sort of, I don't know, something to incorporate both of them since they're worsted weight. I've never made a hat before, but I wasn't sure if I had enough of only one color to do a whole hat. But I was thinking, like, it's not the scratchiest yarn by any means. Like, I'm totally fine wearing it in sweater form, but for a hat, I didn't know if it would be too much. So that's why I ended up going with this Barocco Vintage, because it is, let me see, what is it? It's a blend. So it's 52% acrylic, 40% wool, and then 8% nylon. And it also can be machine washed because of that, which is awesome. And since there is wool in it, it's still nice and warm, but the acrylic makes it a little bit softer, and I think it'll be really nice to wear on your head. And holding it up now, I'm like, it's a really nice color. Like, I don't tend to wear red or warm colors, but I kind of like this one. But so I'm planning on doing a hat for him. I haven't decided on which pattern yet. I'm thinking like maybe one of the PetiteKnit patterns. I would be interested in the Musselburgh hat, but I don't know if you can use a worsted yarn for that, and this one is technically worsted, I think. It's 100 grams for 200 meters. Oh, so, well, yeah, it's like, yeah, worsted, I guess. Yeah, so I'm not entirely sure. I did buy 2 skeins of it just because I wanted to make sure that I had enough in case one isn't enough for a hat. Like I said, I haven't knit any hats before, and I know a lot of people will sometimes use sock yarn to knit a hat, but that's obviously a lot thinner than this. So yeah, I don't know. I have 2 just to be safe, and so depending on how much I use of this to knit the hat for my uncle, I will either use the other skein to make a hat for my aunt, or I've been thinking about also doing another scarf number 4, because I actually have 2 other skeins of the Cascade 220 fingering Superwash. One in the, I believe it was iguana green that I used in the melange sweater, and then I think the purple that I used in that one was called eggplant, maybe. I'll double check, but yeah, I think both of those colors on their own are also very beautiful and would make a really nice scarf. I would probably lean towards doing the green in that case, and then that'd be kind of cute to have like the reddish and the greenish together as a gift. But yeah, that will remain to be seen because I need to do the hat first. But yeah, those are my gift plans for this holiday season. And otherwise, yeah, that's what I've been knitting on. Thanks for sticking around, listening. I feel like this was kind of a long episode because I was rambly and I had a lot of what feels like older projects now to sort of catch you all up on, since I had missed, like 2 months of recording. But anyway, thanks for watching again. Hope the fall knitting has been going well, and if you're knitting gifts for people this year, I hope that goes well. And I will see you in the next video. Bye.